Okay.
Don't worry, dog.
Okay, so what I want to do is just quickly review with you guys. Um, we have our rules of engagement, philosophical chairs. The biggest thing to remind you of is trying to use the other person's name and recapture what the previous person says. Okay? Now, I also want to point out, everybody read this correctly? Correct. Correct. Okay, everybody read this. Great. It just gives you a couple of examples because you have options when you're doing this. Now, the agree side always goes first, right? And obviously, when you're starting out, you're presenting arguments, okay? You're presenting arguments. But you have a number of other options. You can directly pick a person to ask a question to if you want them to elaborate on something that they said. Let's say they say something and you're like, I don't think that source is right, or I don't think they explained that correctly, or I just don't understand. You can specifically ask a person to explain something, okay? Or you can just ask a general question of the other side, okay? If it's just like a general question like, how can you refute this argument? You can ask that. Or if there's somebody on the other side who just hasn't said anything, you can just basically tag that person and say, what do you think? Because remember, the Q&A part is a very important part that we're prepping for, is being asked questions in front of an audience and being able to handle yourself when you're directly asked questions, okay? Now the other thing is, when you're talking, you recapture what the person said before you, and again, that's not word for word, that's just, in regards to what Jonathan said about the majority of prison inmates being minorities, blah, 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 blah. When you say what you want to say, you don't have to raise your hand separately if you want to pose a question. You can say what you want to say, and then directly pose a question to somebody or generally to the other side. Okay? And if you get stuck, the nice thing is that if at any point you get stuck, you have all these different resources on your desk to refer to. You have the Dark Knight transcript, the Frankenstein summary. So you should make sure that right now that you have all that stuff out and handy so you don't have to shuffle through your backpack or anything like that. The Book Thief, your autobiography, your rules of engagement, and the sheet that I just gave you reminding you of what your options are when you're talking. Okay? Does anyone have a question before we start? Yeah, Carl.
So, say Brandon starts, right? And he says something. If we don't have, Archie doesn't have to raise their hand, we can just speak out after he's done?
Okay, so let me talk about what we're going to do. Now, yes, you can just speak out, and basically my job as mediator is just going to be to make sure that, for example, Christian's not doing all the talking, okay? But basically, you guys are just talking to each other, okay? I'm really just here mediating and interjecting things. Now, what I have here is a chair on each side, and that's basically I can go and I can sit and I can be on this side and I can be recognized and I can make a comment or pose a question to the other side, and then I get to switch sides. So I kind of get to do, everything. So just be aware if you're hiding over here on this side or hiding over here that even if nobody else calls you out, I can go and I can call you out.
References just from the text, or can we make a real life reference?
You can make real life references. That is totally fine. Just make sure that, of course, you want to start, of course, in references that everybody's familiar with. Because if you get too much and are only talking about things that only you know about, then, and this is something to be aware of, other side, watch for this. Is their source, are they backing up what they're saying? Okay? Because anybody can say anything, but are they backing up what they're saying? Okay? So make sure you're at least starting with a foundation point. Okay? Now the other thing is that I'm going to do is, since I'm mediator, I'll start off over here, and I think actually, I don't think actually that in the last period I had some other people step in, but I think you guys can pretty much go without too much mediation. Just be aware that you do have to wait 3 people to talk before you can talk again. You can talk again, just wait for 3 other people to go. Okay? Okay, so we are ready to start. And nobody else on here. Oh, starting question. Yes.
Wait, no. Does it have to be 3 people on your side or just 3 people in general?
3 people on your side. Yeah, 3 people on your side. Just so. Now we have a smaller group than my last period class. So, you know, especially because your side is a little bit smaller than the other side. You know, for you guys, you could probably wait like 2 people on your side.
You mean the small people on the other classes?
My other classes were like bigger. Yeah. Okay,
Or you
so
could say-
we're gonna start off with the pro side, and who would like to make the first argument?
Bring it a second. Down. Yeah.
Okay, so our first argument is that victimized people are not loved, therefore they victimize others because to like fill the void of the love, they victimize others. They hurt others to make themselves feel good.
Oh, I don't get what you mean.
You can just go.
What evidence do you have to prove that?
Okay. So let's see. In the movie Batman, Joker lives a sad life. He was neglected by his dad and his mother, and because of the lack of his childhood love, he threatens people such as the White Knight. I don't know his name. I'm sorry. Harvey. Okay, Harvey. And he also threatens Batman, who is in a similar position as him. So,
Yeah, but Batman didn't have such a great life either. Both his parents died, and he grew up a lonely childhood. He didn't have a great childhood.
Okay.
So he's not.
I would like to did I interrupt you? Okay, go ahead. Okay, he didn't grow up lonely because he did have the father figure as his butler, Alfred, and he grew up in a mansion with all that he needed. But the only thing he didn't have his parents, but he had the father figure of Alfred to help him go through his struggles.
Based on what Matt said in the beginning about people not being loved, so they're trying to fill the void. Could you guys say that everybody who doesn't feel loved or is victimized in some way will also victimize somebody?
I like to say that it's not just that they didn't get love, it's just that they didn't know any better because that's how they were brought up, and that's what they see as a role model, and that's pretty much what their life is based off of.
Well, counter to that, say in the movie Frankenstein and the novel, Frankenstein the scientist was technically almost like a father figure to the Frankenstein monster. Though there was not like much of a connection between them or love, I suppose you could say. They were still together for a short time, and bonds can be created over short times as well.
Well, but the monster stated that his dad didn't really love him. That's why he's really, enraged about it. And in one quote, he said, "I have love that you can scarcely remember. I have rage that you could not believe. If I cannot satisfy the other, I will indulge the other." So what he's basically saying is that if he doesn't get love from anybody, which he does feel, that's why he's like really enraged.
I have a question. So, just bouncing off of the comment that Keanu made and then Kathy's response to that. Because you said that Keanu, you said that they did spend time together, a short period of time together. But could you really call that a relationship?
Well, he did spend time making him. Honestly speaking, it was like almost making a very adult baby in a sense.
But time making him, I mean, the monster wasn't conscious. He was inanimate.
Well, you could say the same thing for a fetus. I mean, come on, when a mother rubs her son's belly, like, oh yes, you're in there, thank you, and stuff like that. The same thing applies there because you're not. I think the baby doesn't have any feelings yet, but still growing.